Since the shocking arrest of Richard Allen on October 28, 2022, one of the main questions that has been asked about the Delphi murders is, was Kegan Kline really involved? Did Richard Allen and Kegan Kline know one another somehow? And most importantly, were they connected through some kind of sick child pornography ring? I will be talking about the reasons why many people think that yes, Richard Allen and Kegan Klein must have been connected. But first, let's go over what's been going on with Kegan Klein in recent days and weeks. An Indiana judge dropped multiple charges of child pornography against Kegan Klein just days after Richard Allen was arrested. Kegan Klein was accused of talking to Libby on the very day that she was murdered. Kegan Klein allegedly confessed to investigators in 2020 that he used a fake profile and fake photos to lure in underage girls via social media. So that was the Anthony Schatz profile. He also admitted that he spoke with Libby on both Instagram and Snapchat before her death. Now remember, there were 30 child sexual abuse and child exploitation felony charges against Kegan Klein. And the timing is like this. Prosecutors filed a motion just days after Richard Allen was arrested for some of those charges to be dropped. And another request has been filed to downgrade the remaining charges. The charges of child sexual abuse and child exploitation, felony charges, all of them. So here's a quote from the prosecutor's office. There is insufficient evidence to prove said counts beyond a reasonable doubt at trial. What? If you're thinking this timing is extremely suspicious, you're definitely not alone. Although investigators have been holding their cards tight to the vest and very few details have been released regarding the investigation into the Delphi murders, we do know a few things, and we know a lot of these few things based on the leaked 2020 transcript of investigators' interview with Kegan Klein.
So here's what the transcript of that 2020 interview with Kegan Klein shows. It shows that he failed a polygraph examination when he said he didn't know who killed the girls. So Klein says, I don't know who killed the girls. Polygraph says deceptive, indicating that he did know who killed the girls. The same polygraph exam revealed that Klein was being truthful when he said that he stopped messaging with Libby in the catfish persona of Anthony Schatz 2 weeks before the murder. So again, to that question, the polygraph indicated that Kegan Klein was truthful in saying, I stopped messaging her 2 weeks before the murders. When investigators told Klein that they believe he spoke with Libby during her overnight stay with Abby before they took their fatal hike, he initially denied it. But the messages continued on Libby's phone, although the messages were deleted from Klein's phone. This led investigators to start to wonder if someone stepped into Klein's place in the Anthony Schatz persona for the last 2 weeks leading up to the murders. In questioning Kegan Klein, investigators said to him, quote, so during the time frame where this grooming would have been built up to meeting, the history is gone. It's wiped from your phone. So now it all starts to stack up. The complexity of your Anthony Schatz persona, the cars, the influence of Lamborghinis, Ferraris. It's not you. It's not your idea. You and I both know it's not your idea. The complexity of it, okay? It's just not you. Even under that line of questioning, Kegan Klein never copped to anything. It should also be noted that Kegan Klein was temporarily released from jail to the custody of Indiana State Police in August. He was released the very day that officers began a 5-week search of the Indiana Wabash River. This intensive search eventually led to the arrest of Richard Allen. Meanwhile, Allen has pleaded not guilty and is reportedly being uncooperative with investigators. So when we put everything together here, we have an extremely curious situation, or maybe it's not curious at all. Maybe it's very obvious and telling. We have these very serious charges against Kegan Kline. 30 charges of child pornography and exploitation. Those are very serious charges, as I'm sure you well know. All of a sudden, just days after Richard Allen's arrest, prosecutors decide to drop 5 of those charges and then a few days later announce that they're going to try to reduce the remaining. That is just, crazy on its face right there. Let's factor in the polygraph examination results, finding that Kline was truthful when he said that he hadn't talked to Libby 2 weeks prior to the murders, and that he was deceptive in saying that he did not know who committed the murders of Abby and Libby. Factoring in Kegan Kline being temporarily released from prison in August, which started a ramp up of an intensive investigation that led to Richard Allen's arrest. What is the most reasonable conclusion one could make as we put all of these facts together? Did Kegan Kline know that Richard Allen committed these murders? Did Kegan Kline share his Anthony Schatz profile with Richard Allen or Richard Allen and some other people, perhaps as part of a larger child pornography, child exploitation ring? Oh, it's just so gross to even think about. Let's listen here to an interview with an FBI profiler who insists that it is very likely that the Delphi murder arrest is going to somehow involve Kegan Kline. The reporter is asking the FBI profiler about Richard Allen and asks the same question many people are wondering. Where did this man come from? We hadn't even heard the name Richard Allen before. Let's listen to what the FBI profiler has to say.
And as we said, this is a case we've been following closely here at News Nation. I know I've personally been interested in this. Never heard this name before, though. Had Richard Allen ever been on your radar? Because I know his name was never mentioned publicly before.
It had not been on my radar or anyone's that I know of. Now, I've never been personally involved in this investigation as law enforcement. And when I retired about 4 years ago, we continued to get some tips into my private agency that we would pass on. But no, that's not a name I've ever heard come up.
Well, so Doug, Kelly kind of walked us through the ins and outs of this case, now more than 5 years in the making. This arrest coming now. Why now?
Some piece of information's come in, some piece of evidence has been found. I can only speculate like everybody else, but it seems to be after the arrest of this Kegan Kline that it seemed like they were kind of homing in on something. So I don't know if he's even still connected or not. I hate to speculate, but it just seems like there's probably some sort of connection.
Yeah, and I do want to ask you more about Kegan, but, it's possible that Richard Allen, who, again, obviously has not been found guilty, hasn't even been named officially by police, but, he's now under arrest, could have been on the run at this point for more than 5 years, living among the community. Did authorities maybe know more than they let on?
Oh, I'm sure they knew more than they made public. When you're investigating something like this, the only time you're going to release information to the public is if you think it can help you resolve this case. And I know everybody wants to know, but there's just no good reason to put out information unless you think it will help bring in tips or spark somebody's memory or something like that. So most likely they've been keeping some bits of information close to the vest, and it's now culminated in this arrest.
And of course, that makes sense. You know, and we have heard of these recent FBI searches, potential suspects investigators have been looking into. As Kelly mentioned, this man, Kegan Kline, he has been a focus of the investigation. I want to play for you what Doug Carter with Indiana State Police said about Kline to our Rich McHugh back in February.
Did Abby and Libby communicate with this profile?
I'm not going to talk about that, but I am going to say that we learned a tremendous amount through that particular investigative course.
What can you tell me about this man who has been arrested, the creator of this profile, Keegan Klein?
All I can say about Keegan is that entire issue and the entire release has allowed us to glean significant investigative leads.
All right, so Doug, with your expertise, help us read between the lines here. Is there more going on? Could Klein still be connected?
It's possible. Just speculating, of course, here, but it seems likely to me based on my professional experience. You know, he's got his own issues with the charges that he's facing, and perhaps he provided the information that led to this arrest and could be given some credit. You know, it's hard to say, but I would think it's very likely.
Yes, so many people interested in this case, and it looks like now finally moving forward. Former FBI agent Doug Coons, we thank you, sir, so much for your time.
Based on the information in this video and what you know, I want to know what you think. We all want to know what you think. Is Keegan Klein involved in the Delphi murder somehow? Did he have a connection with Richard Allen? Please leave a comment below letting us know your opinion. Be looking out for the next 2 videos in this series on the Richard Allen Keegan Klein connection in the Delphi murder case. I hope we find complete justice for Abby and Libby.